I tried Barbarian. I fell asleep. I tried Druid. I fell asleep. I tried Twisting Blades. I fell asleep. I tried Rapid Fire Rogue. I couldn't fall asleep. Welcome to Insomnia, my friends, and welcome to one of the most action-packed, fun, and effective builds in the game that is capable of taking you to the endgame and clearing as high of nightmare dungeons as you have the desire to push. This build focuses on evading around the enemies as we crowd control them and burst them down. I have multiple guides for this build that goes over all of the offensive and defensive mechanics of the build in great detail that you can check out later for endgame. But for now, I'm going to go over a leveling guide for levels 1 through 50 for this build as you get started in Season 1 of Diablo 4. Let's go over the skills first. So in this build, we'll be taking Puncture, Rapid Fire, Penetrating Shot, Dash, Shadow Imbuement, and Dark Shroud for leveling. Eventually, as we gain power and into the late game, we'll be getting rid of Dark Shroud, as eventually we'll be using the Umbrus aspect that will allow us to take this off our bar, and this Dark Shroud could become, for example, Poison Trap, and Dash later on, we would change this to Shadow Step, and Penetrating Shot, this will eventually become a second imbuement, so either cold imbuement or poison imbuement, like so. But while leveling though, I would recommend getting Dark Shroud. This just gives us more movement speed. And Dash is really good for just moving around the map faster for those faster clear speeds. And then also going back to Penetrating Shot, which allows us to have more AoE clear until, for rapid fire, we need the aspect of repeating. So until we get aspect of repeating and put that on our amulet for now, because as you level up, you're not going to want to replace this every time that you get a new weapon. Ideally, we would put this on the weapon for that double 90% instead of 45%. But while we're leveling up, just put on the amulet to get some bonus and not have to replace it. Another aspect that I'd recommend trying to get early on is the aspect of Protector for leveling. Again, if you want to see more about the other aspects, go check out one of my other guides, and it has them all there. But while you're leveling up, you're not going to be able to really target, farm, and get all the aspects that you need. Kind of just use what you get. And how about skills? So I put together a guide here that tells you exactly what points to put in where for each exact level. So we could check this out real quick. So basically we start with puncture, and then we go to enhanced puncture, and then we get penetrating shot, and then we get fundamental puncture. So we get 3 of the blades being spread out there. And then we get rapid fire, and then enhanced penetrating shot, enhanced rapid fire, advanced penetrating shot, and then we go down here for dash, and then we go back up to here to max out our penetrating shot. So we get penetrating shot, etc., etc. And then we go down here to dark shroud to get some mobility. And then we go down here for AoE clear for our shadow imbuement, and also just to help with energy. And then we go back up here for enhanced dash so that we can get a little bit of crit strike damage, but more importantly, discipline dash, which allows us to dash through the enemies, slowing and dazing for extra crowd control. And then we go down here for innervation, so this is going to help us out with some energy gains. And then we go down here for adrenaline rush, as well as 3 points into haste for more mobility. And then we go back up here for getting a few more points into rapid fire for some more damage. And then we have a choice of our 5 different options here. And I'm probably going to do close quarters combat. I think this is the best one. Precision is really only decent if you have good critical strike chance, which we probably won't have for a while until we get some better gear. And then Victimize could be potentially useful with the aspect that heals with Victimize potentially. Might not be the worst option if we need some healing, but Close Quarters Combat is probably just overall the best option here. And for those who are unaware, you do need both a marksman and a cutthroat skill, and that's where our dash comes in. So as we dash through an enemy, this counts as a cutthroat skill, and this can help us proc that close quarters combat. And then we go back up to rapid fire, as well as getting advanced rapid fire. So this is when you evade, it will increase the crit strike damage, and rapid fire has a built-in increase of critical strike damage, so that's very helpful. And then we go back down and put some points back into shadow imbuement so that we can max this out for more AoE clear. And then we get exploit, and then 3 points into malice just for more damage, and then more points into exploit for some more damage. And then we get precision imbuement for some more crit chance, followed up by sturdy, which gives us some close damage reduction, and then weapon mastery for just some more critical strike damage. So that's the general leveling guide there. And also in this guide, I have some additional notes to help you out, things that I will be thinking about and what I'd recommend you guys do as you guys level up. So first off, at level 10 through 15, I'd go to Lost Archives to get your Protector aspect. This is the one that gives you a barrier when you encounter an elite. And then at level 35, if you're still using Penetrating Shot, go to Bastion Faith to get the Trick Shot aspect. So this is the one that makes it split off at 90-degree angles and hit multiple enemies. And once you get the repeating aspect, I would recommend get rid of Penetrating Shot and pick up Poison Imbuement and max out Poison Imbue. And once you get the Umbrous aspect and you have a decent amount of crit chance to sustain Shrouds, you can either put a third Imbue on or Shadow Step for more mobility or Poison Trap for a little bit more defensives. And once you get decent Sacred Gear, you can switch from Poison Imbue to Cold Imbue, or as well as Enhance Cold Imbue and Mix Cold Imbue, as well as 3 points into Frigid Finesse. And I'd also recommend, if you get any boots that have plus evasion CD reduction on attack with movement speed, I would use those until you can replace them with similar, better boots. So this will help you a lot with your evasion. And then healing. So because we are not going to have siphoning strikes to help us out anymore, because siphoning strikes got nerfed, though you could try it, maybe it'll help a little bit. We are going to probably need to look for some other sources of healing potentially. So things like the aspect of Cruel Sustenance plus Victimize could be decent perhaps, or Crowded Sage aspect could also be decent while leveling. I'd also look for Life on Hit on your helmet. And then when we do have high crit percents, we may need to end up picking up Siphoning Strikes anyways, just for some extra sustain, even though it's not great. And then we have the new mechanic for this season, which is Malignant Hearts. So I went through all the Malignant Hearts and picked out ones that I thought could be potentially useful. So first off, for the early game, we have the Picana. So critical strikes electrically charge the enemy, causing lightning to arc between them and other charged enemies, dealing this amount of damage. So critical strike chance, we get a lot of it through rapid fire. So this could potentially proc a lot. And then Trickery is a defensive, so when you use a subterfuge skill, you leave behind a unstable shadow decoy trap that taunts enemies. The shadow decoy trap will explode after 6 seconds, dealing some amount of damage. So this is pretty interesting, because what this means is that we could use Poison Trap, we could drop Poison Trap down, which would then drop the shadow decoy, which would then taunt all the enemies into our Poison Trap, and then we could AoE them down with other aspects. So, for example, eventually, if we could get the Barber, which tells us that critical strikes and all subsequent damage within 2 to 4 seconds is absorbed by the target, then the absorbed damage erupts onto surrounding enemies. So this could turn our rapid fire that's a little bit more single target heavy into an AoE skill potentially. And that AoE could then be burst down along with our trickery shadow decoy. Could be interesting. Another potential one for early game would be cluster munitions. This just drops some stun grenades and stuns the enemies. And one thing to keep in mind with the new gems here is that certain ones can drop at level 20, like these, which is why they're early game. These ones, notice they say tier 3, tier 3, tier 4. Can't get them until a bit later. Okay, but another one that could be useful is Revenge. 10 to 20% of incoming damage is instead suppressed. When you use it offensive, subterfuge, or a Macabre skill, all suppressed damage is amplified by 250% and explodes, dealing a bunch of damage to nearby enemies. This just makes us tankier. It's going to reduce how much damage we take, which could be potentially useful. And then we have the Vile Apothecary. Your attacks have a 5 to 15% chance to apply all imbuement effects at 40 to 50% of normal potency. And this could just be potentially useful along with the Frigid Finesse, because now we'd have a way to apply chill without using penitence boots, which is pretty huge. And another gem that would be extremely useful once we get high crit is Tempting Fate. And this would allow us to gain 40 to 6% critical strike damage. So this is just a 40 to 6% multiplier, which is huge. But your non-critical strikes do 20 to 15% less damage, which isn't a big deal once we have 80+% crit chance, or even lower than that. And if you want to learn more about the build, all the offensive aspects of the build, as well as the defensive aspects of the build, all the various tips and tricks, definitely check out the playlist in the description. It'll help you out a lot. And feel free to leave comments, and good luck on Season 1, and check back later for more updates on the build as we go forward. I'm sure once I actually get it to endgame and practice some things, I'll be changing some stuff up. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.